Hey guys, this is National Master Kevin Yang back at it with another video. So this one is a continued thought about my game against Aron. And so I have to say this was a very exciting game. So I think we have to leave off at this critical moment. So this critical moment, knight to d4. So at this point, I was feeling like I was much better after f5. Because I looked at it and I said, if you play queen d4, I'm going to play f4. And this rook can only go to g5. And guess what? Play h6. The rook is gone, right? Nowhere to go. I'm feeling very confident at this moment. Then knight d4 hits me. And so the first move I think about is, what if I play f4 instead, right? And then I looked at knight takes e6 in my head, and I was like, no. I don't like it. But what I missed in this position is the move queen to f6. And when I was analyzing this at first, I was blown that I had missed this move. But it's hidden. It's extremely hidden because, first of all, knight takes rook, queen takes queen, right? And queen takes rook, no, queen takes queen, rook takes queen, and I'm still threatening the rook, and I'm still threatening the knight. And that's what I was missing, right? So let me just show you what I mean. Knight takes rook, queen takes queen. And if queen takes queen, rook takes queen, rook threatening knight, pawn threatening rook, and the only way to do it is knight takes and rook takes. So I could have won like this. But I didn't see what happened after knight takes e6, right? I didn't see this move, queen to f6. I thought that I had to give up my rook, and then I would take our friend's rook, and it would be all just normal, right? But in the game, I wanted something, right? So then I looked at the move queen to f6, and I said, okay, what do I remember? Queen takes f6, rook takes f6, and the move f4. I looked at this. I said, you know what? Maybe. But I also looked at the move rook to e3. And then I said after f4, rook to about e1, because if rook to e2, f3 would be played. So I looked at this position, and I was like, the knight's never going to take here, because the rook is threatening this pawn, right? So then I have to play king g7, but then there's knight b5, and I was like, oh my god, these weak pawns, right? So I'm thinking about my weak pawns, and I'm like, queen takes, rook takes, and what if knight b5 just happens right away, right? Well, the rook would be gone there. So rook to e3, right, like I showed in the game. And this was what I was calculating. So like I showed before, knight to b5. This was what I was scared about internally. I was scared about weakening my pushing too hard on the king side, that I leave my pawns open. So I was like, I can't do that, right? So I can't play queen f6, so what do I play instead? I could play queen f7, but then there might be knight b5 again, threatening the two pawns. So I said, I'm going to play queen d7, at least defend this pawn. f4 came, knight takes, rook takes, and I have to emphasize that I do like c takes better, because it does still keep the threat of rook takes g6 alive. And at the same time, if e5 happens, white can play a sneaky move rook to e1, saying, if you take, I'm going to play rook to e7 and threaten checkmate, right? So then rook c to e8 has to happen, and just show goes on, right? So then e5, rook to e1, show goes on. So f4, knight takes d3, and I was very surprised by the move rook takes d3. I'm not sure if I was like 100% surprised. I was more like 60% surprised. Because at the same time that I thought that the rook belonged on g3, it's very logical that the rook comes here. Because this pawn, you guys know it's coming. Knight to b5, right? Going for this boy, going for this bad boy. So what do? Right? I'm all of a sudden panicking. I'm like, ugh, the move's gonna come again. I play rook c4, and I'm like, chill to myself. I'm like, chill. Because knight b5, I'm going to play, at worst, bishop d5. Right? This is probably not the greatest move. I could also play rook takes c2 and threaten g2. I could also play a6, and after knight takes d6, bishop. No, I'd have to play rook takes c2 because I have to get that threat on g2 down. So what I'm saying is most moves in this position win. Like, for example, I told you bishop d5 wins, right? But after rook to b3, I saw an opportunity. And I looked at this weird looking connection, and I said, let's play e5, right? If you take it, I'm going to take it, I'm going to come threaten your queen. So our friend Aron took the challenge, and I do not think that Aron should have taken the challenge, but he took the challenge anyways. Queen h6, and at this moment for a second I was a bit scared, because I saw a lot of confidence in this move. The rook is threatened, right? So if I play rook f7, I have to be very careful because of the move knight to b5. And all of a sudden, if I play queen to e7, there's knight to d6, and there's a forkaroo, switcheroo. Can't do that, right? And if I play queen to c6, my original intention, well, there's rook to d8. Checkmate's on the way, right? So I can't do that either. So I have to be very precise in my moves here. And I could go king g8, I could go queen to e7, or I could go, even defensively, I could go rook to g8. But I chose rook to e8. And I decided, if you want to play knight b5, bring it on. Because I'm going to play queen to c6. I'm going to threaten this. If you play rook d2, I'm going to play rook takes c2. Right? And I'm going to say, if you take, I'm going to take with the queen. I'm going to threaten checkmate. And I'm going to bring the fight to your table. So, this is what I hope to prepare. But in the game, knight takes f5 happened. And all of a sudden I was like, this was probably the first move in which our friend Aron has broken down, right? Because queen takes knight, rook to b1, rook takes c2, right? Going for the g2 pawn, rook to d1, check, rook check, with the bishop connected, king g1, and checkmate. So this game was full of drama. I mean, if you looked at it from this perspective, I won a pawn in the beginning, but I didn't play enough precise moves later on to really seal that advantage, right? Like after bishop takes f6, this was one of those moments where I knew I got the edge, right? I have the weak squares and everything. I just needed to take advantage of it. And I feel like king h8 was a little bit slow. I mean, although I could have worried about the possibility of queen takes d4, I feel like I had more important things to do. So for example, bringing my rook to d8, bringing my rook to c8, that's more important than trying to go for this knight. Because the knight on d4 doesn't exactly do much. It's more of a central positioning, but I wouldn't say it has too much of an effect. So by playing king h8, I give our friend a move, knight to b3, and I feel like I played okay here, but at this moment, knight to d7, it was an interesting thought. I don't know if it was the best thought, but I went with it, right? I stuck to my plan, and now f5, and I felt like this was the moment where I let Aron back into the game. Queen d7, I gave some sort of initiative. And after f4, pawn takes, c takes should have been played to protect this pawn, but after rook takes, I was back in the driver's seat after e5, and knight takes f5 sealed the deal, rook takes, check, check, and checkmate. So that just goes to show how complex chess can be, right? I start up, one pawn up, I'm consolidating my advantage, and then I play a series of inaccurate moves, right? I had the queen d7 move, and so just in the end it worked out, but it just goes to show that there's so much in every game that you can unpack. So I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you discover your curiosity, follow your passions, and find what you're looking for, because I found more than what I was looking for in chess, and I'm extremely grateful for it. So I'll see you next time.